Hello everyone. I want to have a discussion regarding what's on the screen, but first I just want to respond to some comments like I did with the last recording. There has been an increase in comments asking why I don't have the likes shown. It's not because I'm getting a bunch of dislikes, it's just because I don't see a point in it. The few times that I have left it on, I only received 3 likes to 1 dislike. I don't see how 4 votes is really going to help me in any shape or form, so I just leave it off. If people like the content, then great. If people dislike it, fine. Just go in the comments and tell me what I'm doing wrong, and I will try to correct it. I've tried to stress this so many times on my channel that I'm a person who reciprocates to civility and respect. If you can show that to me, I will show the same to you. If you approach me in that manner and say, hey, can you do this differently or this, then I'll be like, sure, let me take a look and see what I can do. Whether or not I do it is a completely different story, but at the very least, I will hear you and respect that you took the time to say something to me. Another thing I want to point out is I did post a recording in the past to have a conversation regarding this. I did the recording as part of reaching, I think it was 600 subscribers. I used that recording basically to say that, I'm super happy that you all chose me and were willing to, subscribe to me to that level. I never expected 600 subscribers. And since that recording, we're nearing 700. Never expected it. And I'm certainly very appreciative of it. It's a welcome surprise is what I'm trying to say. But anyways, in that recording, I just left it as an open discussion after thanking everybody for reaching 600 subs. I said, let's go to the comments and let's have a discussion about this whole likes and dislikes thing. Problem is, only 3 people saw that video. So 3 people is not enough to have a discussion regarding how to change my content. What I will do, just out of blatant curiosity, is I will leave the likes open for this recording and we'll see where it goes. But I'm not going to be able to change what I do until you all can collectively get together on one recording and talk to me. That is the only way that this is going to change. Okay? Alright, now let me move into this hardware discussion. My understanding of this recording by Moore's Law is that he wants to see, or at least wants to throw around the idea of a AMD video card using an older architecture or chip process design, using 12 nanometer, an RDNA 2, I think he said it was. I can go back and check that. I will say that's a pretty good idea. I think that one of the things that seems to be forgotten in this industry with, gaming computers is you don't really need all the gimmicks that they throw out there these days. People just need a video card that can let them play the game in an enjoyable manner. So I don't understand why they have to just, race ahead to all these new technologies and stuff. Sure, power efficiency is great, but if we can't get power efficiency, then so be it. At the end of the day, people just want an affordable video card that will give them the enjoyment of their video games. That's all people want. Anything else after that is pretty much a bonus. In regards to that, I did do some reading prior to doing this recording. I looked at hardware charts and many other things. I did notice that the amount of people using ray tracing is very, very small. It's on some charts 3% or lower. 3% of the thousands of gamers out there is really not a huge number. DLSS, however, that has a much larger percentage. That's completely understandable because DLSS is a good technology and does work well. So that's the rare exception to this. But for the most part, people don't use the gimmicks like ray tracing or any other ones that I could list. So I just think that they need to skip making ray tracing video cards, or at the very least make it a higher end thing, because the mid-range or low end is not going to be able to make full use of ray tracing. What I mean is, let's just look at the NVIDIA line, for example. I think ray tracing should only be present on the 3080 or 3070, as they're the ones with enough power to handle that. But the 3060, that's not really going to be able to use ray tracing. I mean, it's already barely pushing the performance limits as is. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. And as far as the AMD side, I think it should only be present on the 6800 XT and 6900 XT. I think that's the only two places it should be. The other video cards should be focused on just raw performance. I want to deviate now to talk about APIs a little bit. I have done plenty of reading in this, and I think that this is probably another discussion that should be happening alongside this video card discussion, and I pulled up a few articles for that. Okay, this is an article by AnandTech, and I'll of course link it in the description. You can see that they ran some tests regarding Vulkan versus DirectX, which are both APIs. Now keep in mind, this is just the performance on Windows. Linux is very good at gaming and can perform at higher frames than Windows can. So these numbers would certainly be different if you compared Linux to Windows. And I'll get into that more in a minute, but first let's just go over this. So they're using Windows in this particular test. You can see that Vulkan and DirectX are fairly identical, or in some cases, a minor gap. So there's that, 26, 20, 24, 26, 32, 31. So yeah, you can see there's not much of a difference in just these raw tests. Now, we can look at some other numbers, and we're going to do that. Okay. So this is for Red Dead Redemption, and I have other articles on my screen to confirm this. I'll link everything, but you can see that when it comes to Red Dead Redemption, depending on which resolution you're using, it can go either way. So what you have to take away from this is that even though that there are huge differences between DirectX and Vulkan in this particular scenario, it's also video card dependent. Or it could also be game dependent. You see, not every video card is good with Vulkan. Video cards have been designed for the longest time for DirectX. So it's very rare that you'll find a video card good at Vulkan. But you can see that there are certainly differences here. And again, it depends on whether or not Linux is involved. But moving on to this article. So this sums it up pretty good, this article right here. Let's look at this sentence right here. Okay. So in this particular sentence, we see Vulkan offers slightly higher average frame rates, 5%, while DirectX offers basically more stability, is what this particular sentence is referring to, and that makes complete sense. Because Vulkan is very capable of reaching higher frame rates than DirectX is. It just depends on how well the game is made and stuff of that nature. If the game is made well and the video card's made well, you can reach a much higher frame rate on Vulkan than DirectX. So I'll link all these in the description for you to look at. But let's talk about why there's such a big difference between Vulkan and API, and why you're not seeing Vulkan. So the problem is that Vulkan is more or less the continuation of OpenGL. OpenGL was the standard for the longest time. The issue is that DirectX has been the standard for games, whereas OpenGL has been the standard for video cards. So, you know, the industry has spent, a couple years making DirectX games. That's what they're used to. So they're not going to make that switch to Vulkan because it's not something that they're used to. And also because there's not really many video cards that are good with Vulkan, so there's another reason for them to not switch. despite Vulkan being an overall more efficient API, is just one of those things. It's going to require an industry change as a whole. And given how big of a change it's going to be, I don't think that's going to happen because it's going to involve a shift in, the developers. It's going to require money, and all this other stuff. So it's unfortunate to see that happening, but it is what it is. Now, let's just say that in theory, that change can happen. Your new problem is Microsoft. Microsoft is, like any corporation, greedy. They want to control the market so they can get their money. Unfortunately, Microsoft does own not only DirectX, but also 23 game studios. Microsoft could be a problem, even if you made that change by forcing their games to be DirectX and then screwing everybody over. Unfortunately, there's no laws about fair market to prevent something like that from happening. And that could happen. Okay, so let's talk about Linux now to kind of tie in all this discussion. So Linux can use Vulkan. It's, I think, native to it. I have to double check, but I'm pretty sure Vulkan is native. DirectX is, of course, not native. And as a matter of fact, DirectX likely won't work on Linux unless you have some sort of translation. But I'll double check that too. So the deal with Linux and why it does a much better job than Windows when it comes to gaming is because of Windows just constantly adding crap to the operating system that is not necessary, like Cortana and all this other stuff. Linux does a better job because it's the bare bones. They don't add all this crap to it. Linux just has the essentials. What you need to run, that's it. It's also because of that, Linux in general is more secure than Windows. The issue with Windows is because it has all this crap like Cortana and the other stuff, it has security holes because of Microsoft's need to phone home. A lot of the technologies that you find in Windows, like Cortana and the other ones, do actually report to the Microsoft home servers at their headquarters. That's why Linux is a bit more secure, because it doesn't have all this phone home crap going on. It doesn't have all this extra software. And of course, there's many other reasons I could list too, like the fact that Linux updates, well, at least on Manjaro. I don't know about the other Linux distributions, but on Manjaro, it does update all the software at once. With Windows, you have to update each individual software. So like, let's just say you install GIMP. Well, you have to update GIMP manually. You can't just go into the update center and then have it update Windows and GIMP at the same time. Manjaro, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. Any application or software you install, whether that be Discord, GIMP, or many of the others, they all install their updates simultaneously because the update center for Manjaro is specifically designed to do that. So yes, if people are just, not wanting to update or whatever reason, that's another security breach because you have an out-of-date software. But anyways, so what I'm getting to here is Linux can be better at gaming than Windows just because it's much more efficiently designed and it doesn't have all that crap going on. The only way that Windows could, in theory, turn things around is if they made a version of Windows specific to gaming. If they made a version of Windows specific to gaming, and just removed all that crap, made sure it's the bare bones, then, they could increase the performance of games going on. Another thing, too, that they could change is the security, as well as the costs. I think that if Microsoft were to make a version of Windows for gaming, and only for gaming, and they sold that for $50, I think that would be perfectly fine. I think that if they want to charge, $100 plus for a license through their official store anyways, we're not talking about getting licenses from third parties, but we're talking through Microsoft or a retailer like Micro Center. Their licenses cost between $100 to $130 US. that's a huge cost for an operating system when, Manjaro is free. So I think a compromise they could make is, make these enterprise or business class editions at the 100 to 130 price range, and then from there, the gaming edition could be $50 US. But Microsoft is Microsoft. Can't expect them to change. Anyways, that's all I have. Thanks for listening.